My name is Jake Hilton. I'm the founder of an online Bible-based ministry called the Sword of Jehovah Ministries, and that's a ministry I established in November of 2016. I'm also the founder of this political channel, Into the Forge. It's a brand new channel where we bring people the truth of the daily news, but most importantly, bring them the truth of the Word of God so that we have the solutions for all of the problems in today's world. And there's a question that I desperately need Turning Point USA to answer. It's a question that I had intended and planned on asking Charlie Kirk himself directly just this evening. This evening being September 30th of 2025. 5 weeks ago, I saw online that Charlie Kirk, on his tour, he was going to be stopping at the university that is closest to where I live in northern Utah, that university being Utah State University. I immediately got my ticket for that event. I got my ticket for myself and also for my wife because there was a question that was on my mind and on my heart that if anyone was going to be able to answer this question, I knew that it was Charlie Kirk. He was going to be able to answer this question. 2.5 weeks later, he was dead. He was dead. And we were all rocked by that evil act by the assassin and heartbroken that America and the conservative movement lost genuinely one of the most important voices that the conservative movement has seen in generations. But more than that, we lost a righteous man of God. We lost a man of faith, a man of courage, and a man who used his voice to speak the truth and change hearts and minds by the power of the truth. A man that I loved, admired, a man that when I saw somebody that I desired to be like. And in a moment, he was gone. But I took heart that even though Charlie Kirk is no longer with us, Turning Point USA is still here, and now being led by his wife Erica Kirk as the new CEO of Turning Point USA, and also seeing that nothing has changed as far as the schedule is concerned, that this evening, September 30th of 2025, Charlie Kirk was scheduled to be right down the road at Utah State University, and while he himself isn't going to be there, obviously, Turning Point USA was still going to hold that event. So I went because I still had that burning question, and while I wouldn't have been able to ask Charlie Kirk directly, I still would have the opportunity to ask the panel that was present. There was Governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, he was president. We had a congressman. We had multiple people from Turning Point USA. And while I suspected that no one on this particular panel was going to be able to answer my question, I still had my hope that by asking the question at a Turning Point USA event, it just may get online, because they were recording it, everything was being recorded, that the video of my question would get online and would ultimately go up the ranks to those highest levels of authority for Turning Point USA, or even right up to CEO Erica Kirk. And perhaps this question could then be answered. However, I was there at the event. I got in line for the live Q&A, and I was so close to the front of the line. The microphone was practically within reach for me to take that microphone and ask my question once again to this panel, but more importantly, getting it recorded and then getting it online. And as I was just a few people away from the front of the line, one of the panelists called out, "Okay, well, this is our last question, and then we're done." And then it was over. And I even stood there. I kept standing there And I raised my hand high in the hopes that while everyone else in the line was taking their seat, I remained standing right where I was, and I raised my hand high in the hopes that they would say, you know what, okay, one more question, and then we'll be done. And it didn't happen. Didn't happen. The event ended, and I wasn't able to get this question asked. However, while I have a very small voice, and this platform with Into the Forge, brand new political channel, very, very small audience, I still nevertheless believe that it's possible that by the creation of this video and asking my question in this video, and with your help watching, this just may get shared. Shared enough that it can be noticed. And if it gets noticed, it just may get to the intended audience to have this question answered. And so that would be what I ask of you. If you're here and you're watching this video on YouTube, if you're watching it on X, if you're watching it on Rumble, if you're watching it on Facebook, then I would just ask that you share it. Please share it. Because I do genuinely believe that this is a question that Turning Point USA needs to answer. And my question is in regards to Tucker Carlson. Now, some context for you. It was years ago that Turning Point USA recognized that Candace Owens, for example, was bad news. And they obviously were right. She is very much so bad news, the worst that there is. And they dropped her. They dropped her and they walked away, even though Charlie Kirk maintained his friendship with her because he desired to help her. The organization itself still dropped her and walked away, which was the right move. Because when you platform someone, you give credence to their position. You actually are saying, while we may not agree with everything that this particular individual has to say and share, we still nevertheless agree with this individual enough that we're giving this person a voice and a huge platform in order to reach many, many millions of people. That's what Turning Point USA did with Candace Owens. And I believe with all my heart and soul that they need to do the exact same thing with Tucker Carlson. Before tonight's event at Utah State University, just off the top of my head, I came up with a big old long list here that I was going to rattle off there in this question. That there have been so many lies spoken about Charlie Kirk, particularly about Charlie Kirk and his relationship with Israel and the Jews. Charlie loved Israel and he loved the Jews. He honored Israel and honored the Jews. And some individuals that have been speaking these lies, these biggest of lies, has been Candace Owens and also Tucker Carlson. And it was just yesterday that the letter that Charlie Kirk wrote back in May of this year, 2025, to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu became public, thus revealing that so many of these lies that, say, Candace Owens has been speaking is just that. Exposed as lies. Plain and simple. And yet, Tucker Carlson is still out there promoting his hatred of Israel and his hatred of the Jews, and that's what it is. Make no mistake, it is hatred of Israel and hatred of the Jews, while simultaneously promoting Islam and the so-called values of Islam. And we know that in the last year of Charlie Kirk's life, he was very vocal about the two biggest enemies that the West is facing. The first of those enemies is leftism, and the second of those enemies is Islam. This red-green alliance that unless we fight back against it with the truth, then it will be the death of us. Charlie Kirk knew that, and Charlie Kirk understood that. He also understood the importance of standing with Israel and standing with the Jews. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, Tucker Carlson has claimed that he's not, quote, obsessed with Israel, and yet over just the last 3 months has had multiple guests on his podcast where the specific subject of Israel has been brought up literally over 1,000 times, and all of it negative. Literally all of it negative, none of it positive. Tucker, who has had multiple pseudo-historians on his podcast who have even suggested that we should have sided with Adolf Hitler and the Nazis during World War II, which Tucker did not challenge. Tucker Carlson, who had that nun from the West Bank, Mother Agapia, on his podcast, she who is the sister of George Stephanopoulos, who outright promoted Hamas propaganda and Islamic lies, all of which Tucker either fully agreed with or did not challenge in the least. Tucker, who said that he didn't think that Hamas was a terrorist organization, but he thought that they were a political organization. And then when he was challenged about what he had said, and he was challenged by Piers Morgan about what he had said, Tucker then outright lied and claimed that he had never said such a thing. Tucker, who while interviewing Piers Morgan in an earlier podcast, Piers had stated that Israel was America's ally, and that's why America was standing with Israel, because Israel was America's ally. And Tucker responded by saying, quote, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. But then you just fast forward to when Tucker appeared on the Megyn Kelly show, and he outright promoted Qatar, financial jihad king Qatar, as being one of, quote, our closest and strongest allies. So he clearly knows what that word means. Tucker, who used the Remembering Charlie Kirk event in Phoenix, Arizona, to subtly suggest that the Jews had had a hand in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Tucker, who was extremely adversarial with pro-Israel Congressman Ted Cruz, and yet on the other hand, was extremely cordial and very, very soft with the Prime Minister of Qatar. Tucker, whose network, TCN, was founded and supplemented with Qatari money, hence the reason so many refer to him as Tucker Carlson. Tucker, who in multiple separate private phone messages has openly admitted to having an absolute hatred of Donald Trump, saying, quote, what he, Trump, is good at is destroying things. Quote, we are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. Quote, I hate him passionately. And quote, he's a demonic force, a destroyer. Tucker, who was very strongly opposed to Operation Rising Lion and Operation Midnight Hammer against the Islamic regime in Iran, saying, no more regime change, no more regime change, none of these things. And yet, just within this last week, has called for regime change when it's concerning Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Speaking concerning Netanyahu, he said, quote, he has got to go. And he's also been spreading the lie that Benjamin Netanyahu has been going around the Middle East saying that he, Bibi, controls Donald Trump and the U.S. government. And lastly, Tucker Carlson, who on his podcast has even promoted Islamic Sharia law. It's exceptionally obvious to anyone who's watching the agenda of Tucker Carlson. His agenda is to turn millions of people on the political right against our friend and, yes, ally, Israel, and against the Jews, while simultaneously promoting the lies and the evil of Islam, Sharia law, Muhammad, the Quran, their God, Allah, etc., etc. And so my question to Turning Point USA that I had intended on asking Charlie Kirk directly, and I had intended on asking this evening to this panel with Turning Point USA, but unfortunately was denied. My question is simply this. Why, on God's green earth, is Turning Point USA giving this snake a platform? Why? I do so hope that you will share this video, and I hope that it can be shared enough that it can reach those people who can answer that question. Thank you very much.